Hello, Ramley and other NFL family, especially Steelers family. Today we are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers on our halfway episode of MOOF, where we are gauging each fan's optimism towards their team headed into the 2022 season. My guest today is none other than Urinating Tree. He has one of the coolest YouTube channels on the tube, often talking about the Steelers and other sports besides football. I'm excited to talk about him and talk some Steelers football right after I find my intro. And welcome in. How are you, Urinating Tree?
I'm doing good, brother. It's a Monday, sun's shining, a little cooler, not scorchingly hot outside. So I'm doing all right. How about you, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, no, there's no football on, but we did get to see that the Colorado Avalanche quenched the Stanley Cup last night. So saw you released a vid for that. Yeah. And Urinating Tree, again, thanks so much for coming on. You are definitely one of the YouTube channels that helped kind of inspire my channel. So I'm sure many of our viewers are well aware of who you are and appreciate you coming on to talk some Steelers today.
Absolutely, man.
Well, let's get into this. And could you maybe start us off? What are Steelers fans optimistic about heading into this season?
I would say mainly the optimism is maybe it's more of a new era. I know Ben had retired this past year. A bunch of players also on their way out. Juju Smith-Schuster was kind of excess good, so he's going to Kansas City. Stephon Tuitt retired, but if you actually look at his past story, his brother died, I think, in a hit-and-run accident, I believe. Last summer, and like his heart wasn't in it. It's definitely understandable. So I'm not going to give him any flack for that. Joe Hayden, unfortunately, is on his way out too. Like he's a free agent. It's a transition year for the Steelers. So you have a quarterback competition coming in right now. Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, the future and the savior of Pitt football. I saw that guy blossom last year. So I'm absolutely happy about that pick. He'll probably sit for a year behind Trubisky. Maybe Trubisky shows something in this offense. You're hoping that guys like Chase Claypool end up actually becoming a top 3 wide receiver in the league, even instead of just, saying it. The defense is mostly bringing back core pieces. They bolstered the defensive line. Larry Ogunjobi actually just got signed. He failed his physical in Chicago, but he's doing like a 1-year prove-it deal. That's probably a defensive tackle. Adewale's coming back from injury. DeMarvin Leal, I was a big fan of coming out of college. Cam Hayward's coming off a career year. TJ Watt. That needs no explanation there. So Miles Jack, too, in the inside linebacker group, which should be huge. So there's a decent bit to look forward to, but at the same time, it's fluctuating in the air. I mean, they could go, as I'm expecting, 8 or 9 wins. They could also randomly fluke their way to a 10, 11 win season, kind of like they did last year, or they could just bottom out and crater. So it's kind of a mixed bag, you can kind of tell.
Okay, so there's optimism mixed with some reservations. That's to be expected in a transitional time. And I will give a shout out to everyone in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. Robot Ninja MOOF stands for most overly optimistic fan in the NFL.
Most overly optimistic fan.
Yeah.
I think that's every Dallas Cowboy fan, isn't it?
Oh, I have not yet had a Cowboys fan on, but we're looking forward to that episode. Well, Tree, let's get into this here, kind of breaking down the Steelers' schedule, and if you could just give your general thoughts towards the game. And if you're watching live with us now, feel free to put a W in the chat if you think the Steelers are going to win, an L in the chat if you think they're going to lose, or if for some reason you think they're going to tie, because the Steelers have been known for a tie here and there.
Oh, yeah, they tied the Lions last year. It's always like one game against a really bad opponent where they just randomly struggle, they tie or they lose. That's how it goes every year. Yeah. So watch it happen against the Falcons. Watch it be the Falcons or the Jets or let's see who else is looking to be real. Maybe even the Browns if Deshaun Watson gets suspended.
Yeah. Well, let's start off. The Steelers start off on the road week 1. They are facing the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Divisional matchup week 1. What are your thoughts towards this game, and do you think the Steelers get the win?
That's going to be a tough matchup, mostly because do you have somebody that can cover Jamar Chase and T. Higgins?
Right.
Levi Wallace is your free agent, but he was more of a number 2 corner behind Tre'Davious White, so I don't know if he can be a number 1 corner. Cam Sutton, same thing, more like a number 2 or number 3. I don't know if he's going to make that jump to a number 1 corner just yet. So that's my concern, especially in the secondary game. Even though Minka got a big contract, he'll definitely be playing a lot underneath, maybe some subtle blitzes. So there is that. And you also have a hole to fill at secondary safety. I know they were looking for Tyrann Mathieu, but they brought back Terrell Edmonds.
Mm-hmm.
So he's okay for a short-term stopgap. He's not the greatest, but he's starting caliber. So you could be okay there. He just tends to have issues with play recognition. So I think the other question is going to be, how is Cincinnati's offensive line that's been revamped? That was a big issue for them last year. How does it do against the Steelers' defensive line, which was a notorious weakness thanks to injury and underperformance from a few parts? Also, Larry Ogunjobi's return to Cincinnati after having an outstanding year there last year. DeMarvin Leal might be starting, or it could be Alualu. So the first time they played Cincinnati last year, they couldn't get a single sack, but that was also because TJ Watt wasn't playing. So if I were to guess, I think Cincinnati wins, but by a hair, I would say.
Okay. She's starting the season off with an L, but that's okay. And I do see a couple of L's in the chat, and we see the Sports Star saying hello to you along with Michael here.
Absolutely. How you guys doing?
And then, so week 2, always fun when the Steelers and Patriots play, especially in New England.
It's in Pittsburgh, though. Dude, last time we played in New England, it was after they won the 28-3 Super Bowl. It was actually, wait, it wasn't 28-3. It was the Rams Super Bowl.
Oh, that would hurt. Yeah.
Then the Steelers got just slapped in that game. False start against everyone but the center. That's all I remember from that game, and I don't want to remember anything else.
Yeah. So, well, do you think that the Steelers can beat this? It's a very different New England team than back then.
It's a coin flip once again, because, does Mac Jones make that next step? Does the Patriots offense, especially their offensive line, gel together in time to create a formidable unit? Does TJ Watt make their life a living hell? Also with the Patriots receiving core, it's a much easier task to try and defend them, even with Kendrick Bourne and a few other guys. But I feel like their tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, can be covered by Devin Bush if he has a bounce back year, and Miles Jack. So part of me feels like the Steelers can win this one.
Okay. All right. We'll give them the dub. So they're 1-1 at 500. I do see that we got some W's in the chat for you coming in. But coming off of that big win, then the Steelers have a short week, and they play in primetime Thursday night football against the Cleveland Browns, which no one really knows what to think of the Browns right now.
It depends if Deshaun Watson plays or not, because if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, you aren't getting Baker Mayfield. He's probably gone. Yeah. That bridge has been destroyed 5 times over. And the rumor is he might be going to Seattle. He might be going to Carolina. They'll probably figure out a trade for maybe a mid-round pick or something, or he gets cut and snagged up pretty quickly just because he's at the point of no return. They've kind of screwed him over, but it was mostly, once again, if he didn't play with a torn rotator cuff on his non-throwing hand, I think he's still the starting quarterback of the Browns. But, that's how Cleveland rolls. So if Deshaun Watson plays, I think the Steelers lose. If Deshaun doesn't play, it's another coin flip. So you know what? I'm petty. I'm going to give the Steelers the win there.
Okay, I love it. I love the pettiness. Let's take it. That's awesome. Well, Steelers above 500 after 3 weeks. You're predicting 2-1, and then you travel to New York to take on the Jets.
I think the Jets could be surprising this year. I think they're building properly. They're really trying to insulate Zach Wilson. I like what they're doing there, even though a lot of their free agent signings have kind of blown up in their face. So it mostly depends on how everything gels for them. This is the kind of trap game where the Steelers tend to struggle especially at home. But I feel like the Steelers still pull it out.
Okay. All right. Okay. So 3-1, 3-1. And then a big game here. This is a tough one on your schedule. You're traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills.
It's going to be a tough matchup. I know last year was kind of a fluke win because a blocked punt and, a really bad fourth down call by Brian Dable. So I don't think that's happening again, unfortunately, unless TJ Watt balls out. I think the Bills win pretty handily here.
Okay. All right. Well, that's no shame in losing to a good team. That's all right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it happens. And you're 3-1. You can afford to lose.
Yeah. So prediction of 3-2 right now. And then another kind of tougher game here, but you are home for this, and you welcome in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can the Steelers get Brady and the Bucs?
I would say yes, but Tom Brady is the Steelers' kryptonite. It does not matter how we play them or what they do. Tom Brady usually beats the Steelers. I think he's lost only twice against us or something like that. So it doesn't matter. I can go over stats. I can go over matchups. I can go over how Tampa Bay's shed some talent in free agency, especially on the offensive line and retirement. So it still doesn't matter. I think Tampa Bay ends up winning just because Tom Brady needs to lord over us.
Okay, that's fair. Well, you're back at 500. You're 3-3. I am seeing some L's in the chat for that.
Yeah, because it's Tom Brady.
That's fair. So 3-3 after 6 weeks, and then you going on the road here for the next 2 games, and the road trip starts with traveling to Miami in a Sunday night primetime football game. Win or lose against the Dolphins. And I do see we have a Dolphins fan in the chat, Grandize.
That's a tough one because I think the Dolphins are going to perform a lot better than they did last year, even though, I like Brian Flores. I think he's going to do a lot for our defense, but I think Mike McDaniel is the kind of guy who's going to let Tua play up to his potential. I think he could do really well as a West Coast quarterback. I think, because look at Tua's strengths, short and mid-range accuracy and maneuverability in the pocket. So I think if he sticks to that, allows Tyreek to do his magic across the field, you have Jalen Waddle do the same stuff as well. Mike Gesicki, I think, is really underrated. So I think their passing attack could be really good this year. I mean, if they get some running back or two, especially as a safety valve in case, say, TJ Watt or an Alex Highsmith comes roaring down the side. And they also remember they did get Teron Armstead. So you beefed up your offensive line near immediately. So if he stays healthy, I think it does well. But once again, I think this is a coin flip because how is their defense going to fare up? They did pay Xavier Howard the big bucks. I'm really happy about that. You have Jerome Baker roving the middle linebacker core. You have, a promising upstart defensive line. Ooh, that's going to be tough. I think the Steelers eke it out by maybe 2 or 3 points. Probably call it game-winning field goal by Chris Boswell by 50-plus yards because that tends to happen.
Okay, so a dramatic Sunday night football game. All right, we like that. And I will give a shout out to our resident Dolphins fan, Grandizer 12. He is predicting the Steelers to lose that game.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's a coin flip. I can see either or.
Absolutely. So then you head to Philadelphia to take on.
That's always a big matchup.
Yeah.
That is always a big matchup, especially when it comes to Philadelphia. Depends how Jalen Hurts plays because he has weapons now. Even though they did lose Zach Ertz, you get AJ Brown. He's going to play a big part in that offense. Same as Devontae Smith. As I said, this is a tough one as well because you have to think Philadelphia's offensive line is going through a transitional phase. Lane Johnson's retiring. This is probably the last year for Jason Kelsey. You do have a couple other guys like Landon Dickerson might be moving over to center soon. I think I forget the guy they drafted in the second round, a really reputable center as well. Is Andre Dillard going to be healthy? Because that's been an issue with him. Has pedigree, he has potential. He just has not been able to stay healthy. And then you also have Brandon Brooks retired. Lane Johnson's been dealing with injury, so that's my mess up there. So I think the Steelers' defensive line gives Jalen Hurts fits, and I think the Steelers end up winning that one.
Okay. So you're 5-3 at the prediction there. I do see Grand Eyes are predicting a tie
Yeah,
there.
I can see a tie. That would be the ultimate troll for both of us. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia do not want to tie.
Yeah.
Never fun.
Well, that does bring us to week 9, which does mean that it is time for our segment called
Bye Week Hot Takes. The hottest takes on the bye week.
Yes, it is time for Bye Week Hot Takes. This is the part of the episode where we find hot takes from all corners of the internet, Twitter, Reddit, and random Facebook groups about the Steelers. And we ask our guests to react raw to them. Tree has not seen these, and we're going to get his initial thoughts. We always try and find hot takes with a little bit of weight to them. But the first one here, which I feel like just tons of people are talking about, Mitch Trubisky is going to prove that with better coaching and an O-line, he will prove the Bears were the problem.
Partially. I think Trubisky did get ruined by the Bears, but I was never a big fan of him coming out of college anyway. The pick for the Bears was Deshaun Watson. And there is an argument there because I know a lot of people say, oh, they should have picked Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes would have been ruined by Chicago. We wouldn't be talking about Patrick Mahomes if he had went to Chicago. We'd be talking about, oh, they should have picked Deshaun Watson because Patrick Mahomes at the time, if you remember, was a very high-risk, high-reward prospect. And if he didn't go to a system that would have catered to his strengths, I think he would have had an issue there. I think Trubisky does play better. He has shown flashes. He did make a Pro Bowl in 2019. So that second year, he did show okay. I mean, he's not the greatest quarterback in the world. I mean, maybe he could be a Ryan Tannehill type. Yeah. A guy who can be starting caliber, but he's not going to lead you to a Super Bowl unless he has talent. So I can definitely see that, but I don't see superstar in him.
Okay, fair enough. And then hot take number 2 is TJ Watt will break the sack record in 2022. He is currently tied with Strahan with 22.5 sacks in a single season.
That's possible. People tend to forget that TJ Watt was out for 2 or 3 games last year. So He played 14 instead of 17. So people say it's a 17-game season. He didn't play for 3 games. So I think with a full season, he might be able to break that record.
That's fair. And there's definitely some questionable suspective O-lines on this schedule that
I mean, you've got Carolina. They have a huge issue. You can see walk-in 4 or 5 sacks in that game just because it's it's Carolina.
Yeah. No, definitely. And then the final hot take, which I feel like I saw this and props to Steelers fans. You guys talk a lot online.
We do.
I've always joked that you could probably start a YouTube channel dedicated to trashing the Steelers, and it would get views. It would.
We're cynical bastards. That's what tends to happen.
But one player that a lot of Steelers fans just seem, to an unhealthy level of optimism for is Najee Harris. The belief that he will rush for over 2,000 yards this season is real within the Steelers fandom. What say you?
I wouldn't say that unless he gets an offensive line. That was the biggest issue for him last year because he'd always have to squeeze out an extra 2 or 3 yards because the line was just so bad last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, they did make some improvements on it. They replaced Trey Turner, who was pretty rough last year, with James Daniels. Kendrick Green is not a starting center, unfortunately. He's a guard who converted to center. He showed a lot of struggles. So Mason Cole is probably going to be your center. I don't know how he's going to do. Does Dan Moore make that next step, even though he's a blindside blocker? He tried to hold his own, but he still had his flaws. Is Kevin Dotson the future? I mean, your best lineman was Chuck Okorafor, and I mean, he's okay. But is he going to be a Pro Bowler? I don't know. So I don't see him getting over 2,000 yards because he doesn't have the line.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, this has been
Bye Week Hot Takes. The hottest takes on the bye week.
Yes, that was Bye Week Hot Takes. Always a fun segment here on MOOF. And we head now to week 10. So prior to the bye, you had the Steelers at 5-3, and then you off the bye week, you're home and you welcome in the New Orleans Saints. Win or lose, what are your thoughts on this game?
I think this is going to be a tough one to gauge too, because once again, Jameis Winston, he was performing well before that injury, And if they get players back healthy, if Michael Thomas returns to full strength, if they get Will Lutz back to full strength, they did lose some pieces, but they do have the Honey Badger. So I can see them being a sneaky win for the New Orleans Saints. So I think the Steelers can lose this one.
Okay. So going to 4 losses here, and shout out to Eric. He's stoked to see the legend urinating tree on the series, and then week 11, you welcome in for the second time the Cincinnati Bengals, who you had them losing, or you had them beating the Steelers week 1. Do the Bengals sweep the Steelers, or do you see the Steelers splitting with the Bengals?
I think this is going to be another tough one to gauge, but I think the Bengals can pull this one off again. I think the sweep is real.
Okay.
Unless they're injured to hell, which is very possible, because I thought the Ravens were going to win 1 or 2 last year, and they were just completely injured by the end.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you have them after 11 weeks. You have them, the Steelers, at 5-5 at 500. I'm sure Steelers fans would be going nuts online with that kind of record.
We'll be talking about going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Well, actually, 5-3, we'd be talking about going to the Super Bowl. You lose 2 straight, we want Tomlin fired.
Yeah. And shout out Jake, tune in here. He's excited to see you as well. And then you got another, again, the schedule for the Steelers is kind of odd in how they scheduled your road games here, but you do got another 2-game road skid coming up here. And that was a primetime game on Sunday Night Football, and then you have another primetime game. You're traveling to Indy to take on the Colts on Monday Night Football. Win or lose?
I'm not that crazy about the Colts. I think they're still in a flux, mostly because, Jonathan Taylor is the piece of that offense. I think Matt Ryan will put up decent numbers, but he's not the Matt Ryan of a couple years ago. He's been on the decline. He's lost arm strength. He'll command respect. He'll at least get them to wildcard contention, but he's not going to be the guy that leads them to a Super Bowl. If it's going to be anything, it's going to be the people around him.
For sure.
So it's going to be another coin flip, but I would take it. Probably another game-winning field goal by Chris Boswell. Steelers win. That's how it always goes. Trust me. There was so much fluke bullshit last year. Oh, there's a big play for the other team. Oh, there's a flag, and it's first down Steelers. It happened 3 games.
That's hilarious. Well, okay, so that's a 6th win of the year that you have there. And then you travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Win or lose versus the Falcons, or is this one of those fluke losses or ties you're thinking about?
It's going to be either the Falcons or Panthers that you lose to randomly, just because it happens at least once a year, and I have no idea why. And, I feel like it would happen more to the Panthers because nobody expects anything out of them if they have Sam Darnold. If they get Baker Mayfield, maybe. But at the same time, I think the Steelers win this one. Okay.
So
Falcons don't really have much of a defense, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, some would say they don't have much of a team in general, but
Oh yeah. They have Kyle Pitts, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, you're 7-5 on the year, and then a huge game here. And again, this is one of the weird things about the Steelers schedule. It's not till week 14 that you're playing the Ravens for the first time of the year.
Oh, I know why they're doing this. They're doing this for the ratings and attention. They want these games to be playoff contention and playoff implications. I know exactly why they're doing this.
Okay.
And I completely get it. And I understand why. Steelers and Ravens is always a spectacle.
Definitely. Do you wish they were divided out a little bit more, or do you like it?
I get why. I'd rather it, maybe it is a month, but I'd say maybe a couple weeks back. I'd say maybe flip the Ravens and Bengals games from the 20th. That would be my guess.
Okay.
Or maybe flip it with the Colts, put that one in prime time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so you are taking on the Baltimore Ravens. They're coming to Pittsburgh. Always a spectacle when the Steelers and Ravens play each other.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on this first matchup? And do you think the Steelers pull it out?
I think the Ravens are going to be a lot healthier this time around. They got wrecked by the injury bug last year.
Absolutely.
And this is a big year for Lamar Jackson. He had shown flashes of brilliance, but he threw some duds out there, including the first game against Pittsburgh. I mean, he made a really bad pass while being rushed by TJ Watt. He just chucked it in the middle of the air. And then the 2-point conversion was kind of like, he kind of forced it. But at the same time, I mean, he does have that game-changing ability. He is electrifying. Does the ankle injury prevent him from doing anything? But I think this is a time where, I think they split home and home. I think the Steelers win this one, but I think they lose in Baltimore.
Okay. But you're giving the Steelers the win, so that takes you up to 8-3 on the year, and then you are traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Win or lose.
This is the game the Steelers randomly lose and play down to their competition. I don't know why, I don't know how, but they end up losing this one. And it's just like the random fluke game. It's like, oh, this is an easy schedule. You're gonna go to 9-5 and be in a good playoff spot. Nope.
Fair enough. I do see some W's in the chat and maybe a tie from Michael here.
Tie.
Toon Link Main saying playing down at the competition. So far you're 8-6 right now, and then you're home and you're welcoming the Las Vegas Raiders to town. The Raiders. Win or lose?
Another tough one. I don't know how the Raiders are going to mesh. I mean, I'm not a fan of Josh McDaniels as a coach. I think trying to imitate the Patriots every single time has resulted in catastrophic failure for the teams. I mean, look at the Detroit Lions a few years ago. Now they're being forced into a rebuild. Does Devontae Adams, is he really the piece that's going to lead them to the top? I think they can make it a game. I think the Steelers win because they're at home.
Okay.
You're not in the black hole.
That's fair. Okay, so 9-6, and then you travel to Baltimore. You mentioned
I think
they split.
I think the Ravens win. So
okay, all right. So that's 9-7 there, and then this final week 18. It seems like the Steelers are always one of the most dramatic teams on week 8.
Mm-hmm.
The final week.
This
of the
is
season.
probably for playoff implications.
You're taking on the Browns. Win or lose? What are your thoughts on this final game?
As I said, once again, it depends if Deshaun Watson plays, and Cleveland's going to be out for blood because, I mean, they were swept by the Steelers last season. I mean, the last game was depressing, but the first game, I mean, they had plenty of chances and they couldn't get it done. Jarvis Landry played the worst game of his career, key drops, a big fumble when they were in field position. And this was with the Steelers, with a bad 2-point conversion play that knocked out Chris Boswell for the game. So, they won in spite of themselves for that one. So, I mean, as I said, it's very tough to gauge. I think the Steelers win, but I can definitely see the Browns pulling this one out and robbing them of a playoff spot. Okay,
well, we're going to give the Steelers the win there. So you're predicting a 10-7 record for the Steelers, getting that double-digit win total. And,
that sounds about right. I mean, I thought 8, 9, 10 wins. Sounds about right.
Definitely. And again, looking at this Steelers schedule, there's going to be some entertaining, games here for sure. Both those matchups late in the year with the Ravens. I think even those Cincy matchups I'm looking forward to. And of course that game in Buffalo and then Tampa, that you got a tough mid-season stretch there with a lot of variables to it for sure.
Yes. I mean, it depends on how a lot of things shake up, especially in how teams mesh chemistry-wise, injuries. Maybe the Steelers get banged up to hell and back and they end up having a really bad year. I mean, who knows?
For sure. Well, Tree, thanks so much for appearing on this episode of MOOF. I know that anyone who watched this live has enjoyed having you here, and also anyone on the replay. And we will definitely see you in the next video. Make sure you go subscribe to Urinating Tree if you're somehow not already subscribed. The link to his channel is in the description below. And Tree, any final words from our viewers?
Nothing yet. I did see a comment from Jake Hauser, by the way. What's your thought on Pickett's? He's taking third-string snaps, which is not good for a QB. You also have to consider you have two quarterbacks that have started NFL games. You have Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky, and I think they're really trying to give them a shake because this is pretty much Mason Rudolph's last chance with the Steelers unless he goes. I think that's the big thing there. I wouldn't put much stock into Pickett getting third-string reps because they're just acclimating him slowly into the game. I don't know if he's going to get much of a role this year. I think next year is going to be a shot because I think this is the year where Trubisky is going to be starting most of the games, unless like he struggles off the bat and then they're just clamoring for Kenny Pickett. That's the only way.
Definitely. Yeah. And do you think, like, would you hope that Pickett starts sooner rather than later personally?
It varies. I mean, because Mahomes sat for a year before he played. I mean, Trey Lance is sitting for a year. It's definitely understandable. You want to get them acclimated to the NFL game. You can't really rush them. Look at what happened with Justin Fields. I mean, there are so many stories of NFL quarterbacks getting rushed and they get ruined because they pick up bad habits. They get skittish. They tend to get nervous because, I mean, they have a bad offensive line. They can't really read the speed of like NFL caliber athletes, and it rattles their confidence. So I'm absolutely fine with him sitting for a little bit.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. You probably don't want to see more from Mason Rudolph.
I mean, I feel like he got a bad shake here. He wasn't the same after that concussion in the Baltimore game. He had shown flashes, but for the most part, it's like, I didn't think he was as bad as people say he is, though.
For sure, yeah. Awesome. Well, again, Tree, thanks so much for coming on. We'll end the stream here, and if you can just hang around, we'll just chat just briefly afterwards. Okay. And all of you, thanks for tuning in on this episode of MOOF. Be sure to subscribe and turn on bell notifications for the next episode. And as we are interviewing every fan base from the NFL to gauge where their optimism is at. As always, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.
Peace out.